This is Dan Ferrisi, editor with Sound and Communications Magazine. Happy to be joined this afternoon by Chuck Wilson, Executive Director of NSCA. Thanks so much for joining me, Chuck.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dan.
It's been several weeks, in fact, a number of months since last we spoke. And at that point, it was really the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a lot of concern in terms of macroeconomics, in terms of the commercial AV industry specifically, job losses and whatnot. It seems like things in the United States, although obviously the pandemic is still in effect, have gotten somewhat better. We're returning to growth in some respects. The stock market is doing better. So, from NSCA's perspective and your unique perspective, speaking to integrators and consultants and contractors all the time, do you feel like the commercial AV industry is on an upswing at this point? Do you feel like we're still being dragged down by COVID-19? What is the level of optimism or pessimism you hear day to day when integrator members reach out to you?
Well, we hear everything. We have a member company that they had 14,000 employees in February. Today they've got 1,200.
Mhm.
So we hear that, and our hearts go out to all of those people who have lost their jobs, been laid off or furloughed, and we're rapidly trying to help them find new positions and stuff if their current job isn't going to be made available to them after this is over. So our effort has been on creating that essential worker strategy going forward, making sure people understand the liquidity and funding and financial impact that they need to you know measure and to take into account all the time. Some integrators feel really good about the future. They're starting to see business pick back up again. The jobs that were put on hold are now, starting to pop again. Where they're scheduling things, they're getting their people equipped and staged for the projects and everything. Depends on where it is. Certain areas that have been hit, almost like with another round of this. They're starting to feel a little uncomfortable. What ones in other areas that have kind of got it under control a little bit better. They're feeling much more positive about the direction the company's going. But we're still working on those tough employment decisions people have to make. We're working on the financial picture. What is their benchmark looking like now for being able to at least break even, and try to understand that we'll probably be down about, I'm guessing most companies on average will be down about 20% in revenue for this year compared to budget, which isn't bad.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, they're also going to be down about 20% in productivity, which means that they'll probably go over hours on jobs as opposed to what was budgeted because of all the safety things going on and stuff. So we're just trying to keep our finger on the pulse of the industry, trying to make sure that on an individual member by member basis that we're helping them with whatever we can do to try to provide guidance and support to help them see what where the end of this tunnel might be, and if they can see light at the end of that.
I think one thing that the pandemic has kind of revealed is that NSCA is the source of business continuity resources in the commercial AV industry. There's just a tremendous amount of knowledge that you have on your website and within your organization with respect to business continuity. And in recent issues of Sound and Communications, we've had Mike Abernathy talking about that. We've had Tom LeBlanc talking about that. Can you kind of reiterate the business continuity resources that NSCA has and how they may be able to benefit contractors, consultants, integrators?
Yeah. So what we discovered through this, Dan, is that people need their associations more than ever. When times are great, you probably don't think about calling NSCA as much as when there's confusion or conflict or challenges that you have with your business. So as the trusted advisor, the business resource for the integrator, what we got was almost like bombarded with requests for just helping companies step through what is it going to look like when their costs are kind of tipping where their normal level is compared to what their revenue is. So people, like if you're chewing up your backlog, if your sales funnel starts to dry up, you're chewing up your backlog, you got to think about, okay, let's predict what the future schedule will look like if we can access these projects or not. And then let's think about how we can get out ahead of the things that we can do to make us more efficient in the fourth quarter, let's say, or early next year. So we're just trying to help them with the balance of how their financials look, how their labor force looks, how um, you know, their profit and loss statements look each year or each month to make sure that they stay in business. That was our big thing, is we wanted to have 100% of these integrators make it through and survive this pandemic. And so far, we've been very, very fortunate. People have had to, scale back. They've had to trim costs. They've had to conserve capital and do a lot of other things they weren't planning on doing. But I think for the most part, we help people, kind of hunker down a little bit when they felt they needed to. Some of our members are going gangbusters because they're working to get classrooms ready, to get churches equipped with, more of the streaming services and stuff like that. So we're finding new ways for them to generate revenue by attaching certain emerging technologies onto what their core competencies were, and that's been working out really well for a lot of our members.
Speaking of generating revenues and generating profits, a horn you've been blowing for quite a while is the shift from capital expenditures to operational expenditures. We're hearing integrators in some cases approaching like a lease-based approach where a system might be paid for over 60 months with a monthly payment rather than a major upfront capital expenditure. Do you feel like the pandemic and the economic effects thereof has kind of accelerated that CapEx to OpEx trend?
Oh, for sure. And one of the big lessons we've all learned is that the companies that had the higher level of revenue was generated on a recurring basis, those are the ones that are obviously doing the best right now. So a hard lesson learned was that those companies who got out in front of this 2, 3, 4 years ago when we first started talking about it, they're in such better financial shape right now because they still have that monthly income coming in the door and they're still able to service those accounts. Well, it just speaks volumes to the upcoming conference we have, Pivot to Profit, that really focuses on that, shift from a project centric company to having at least a business unit or more of a focus even on the company of creating an as a service model, a managed services type of platform by which they do business. So a lot of our members have shifted to the mindset of, why would I want to really sell them something when I can just have them consume the technology until it becomes maybe obsolete or dated, to then I come back in 3 to 5 years later and I do, just an upgrade at that point, do a technology refresh, off we go, and just paying the monthly services. Well, that's great for us. And now what we're finding is that's what the clients want too. So those that were prepared, those that had the back office support, the sales strategy, the financial, partners and everything that they need for that, they're in great shape right now. It's the ones that are still in that, that shift mode where it is kind of a difficult process to get into that. And that's what we help teach our members too.
Right. You kind of anticipated my next question, which is about Pivot to Profit, since that's coming up in just a couple of weeks later this month. When last we spoke a few months ago, it was kind of on the heels of BLC, and we were kind of laughing ironically about the fact that at that conference, the question was like, how do I manage this growth? We're growing so quickly, I'm not quite sure how to manage it. Then obviously the pandemic hit and growth became very challenging. How is Pivot to Profit different from BLC in a broad sense? I mean, are they similar to each other or do they have different visions altogether?
Yeah, so they're very different. At BLC, we ask our attendees not to talk about technology for 3 days, but let's talk about leadership and business and the big picture. Let's work on the business, step back, work on the business, not just in it. Well, Pivot to Profit is the opposite. We're working in the business. We're teaching people exactly how do you, not why. We understand why it's important to, look at new emerging technologies and look at recurring revenue and managed services and all that. We know why. What we're doing at P2P this year especially is, how do you do it? Show me exactly how you do that and learn from the people that are the best at it. We bring them in, we educate people on what it is that they need to do, the big steps that they need to take, the investment they need to take. Could be a people issue. they might need different staff. They might need different software, they might need different tools, and in many cases they have to approach the clients differently. So we're teaching them exactly how to convert their business to something that has more predictable revenue on a monthly basis, which is the whole idea behind RMR, recurring monthly revenue.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything in particular at this year's Pivot to Profit that you would like to shine a spotlight on or whet people's appetite for? Is there a speaker, a presentation, a networking component, something that you really think people ought to know about as they prepare for this?
Well, I think what happened is our committee that puts the content together for this, we looked at what's going on right now, and we decided to bring in a very well-known, one of the world's leading uh, speakers on leadership during a crisis situation. So we got Mike Staver coming back. He wouldn't ordinarily do an event like this. We asked him to, and he agreed to come in and give a keynote at the start of this about mostly for people who have never had to lead a group, a team, or a company through anything like this. And none of us have ever experienced anything quite like this. But he's going to talk to us about, remaining calm and being authentic and being open and honest and having that building a culture of trust and teamwork during this issue, and then talking a little bit about the mental fatigue of doing all the video conferencing, the stress on families who have young children. They don't know if they're going to school, they're not going to school. So we're just going to set the stage with that opening keynote about it's okay not to know exactly what's going to happen, but here's the way to lead through this. And then we go right into these awesome presentations about the cybersecurity issues around the enterprise network and our moving our endpoints onto the network and all the emerging tech trends with that. We're talking about how to preserve the culture that we built when we have people in a hybrid environment working from home, some are working in the office. How do we make sure that our processes and our workflows don't break down? How do we make sure that what we're doing is seamless in front of the client to be as efficient and effective out on the job site as we were before, but yet we can't have those face-to-face meetings in the shop before we go out and stage the project or whatever. So we're talking about a lot of teamwork, and we're talking about a lot of preserving the culture of the organization, which is also tying into how do we move to having these enabling technologies. There's a whole bunch of new technology that we're going to talk about that really tie into the managed service environment. So it's like these things, if we attach these services and these platforms, these technologies onto what we already do in the AV/IT space or security, life safety space, that gives us more tools in our tool belt to be able to say that this is what we're going to be using to be able to remote manage your systems to ensure that they're reliable. And then another thing that we're going to talk about is what we do is important. What we do is essential. It's mission critical now. Imagine trying to run our businesses today without the technology that we have. Well, every one of our clients are dependent now on our skill sets with video conferencing, collaboration tools, with security, life safety, all the things that we're doing remotely. And before we roll a truck, we have the ability to do a lot for our clients without having to be on site necessarily. So the whole conference is going to be packed full of ideas on how to address the big issue, which is finding new sources of revenue and then making sure that those revenue sources can be recurring, that income is steady, it's predictable, and you can forecast better with that recurring model.
It seems like really indispensable information for integrators to have, whether they're smaller mom and pop integrators or mid-sized or even the larger ones. You said it at the outset that some of the large integrators have been very adversely affected as well. So to coach all of these organizations on how to generate more RMR, pivot away from capital expenditures, more toward operational expenditures, more toward having a continuing profitable relationship with clients rather than one and done projects. It seems like something that's an absolute natural for people in these times to learn.
It is, and when I think back, I look at some companies and they're just really not built to be a managed services provider, Dan. They are a true, like an old-fashioned contractor, if you will. They are a contractor that goes in and looks at the project, gives a bid on it. If they win the bid, they order the equipment, off they go, they put it in, and at the end of that, see you later. They're on to the next project, and there might always be a place for that. I'm not sure, but certainly the companies that have elevated to the point, and you think about the title of this conference, Pivot to Profit. Well, the problem is if you don't pivot, you don't often profit. And so those low bid companies doing contracting work, they're finding so much competitive pressure, downward competitive pressure, that they're barely able to break even on these jobs. So they're basically working for wages of their employees, not showing a profit, not being able to get ahead of all of it, stay ahead of the learning curve, the whole deal. So we're really bullish on the idea that if we at least make a significant part of our business focused on a recurring revenue stream, it would make us a much healthier industry overall.
Right. I completely agree. So assuming as a result of this conversation and all the other outreach NSCA has done, people are really interested, they want to register, they want to take part. How can people register? What are the dates that it is taking place? And is there a cost associated with it? And if so, is it different for members versus non-members?
Well, I know for sure that the dates are September 22nd and 23rd. The cost of the event is $99 for members. I'm not sure what it is for non-members, but most everybody that has signed up so far have been members of the association. A real value add, our friends at Avixa has contributed in such a large way here, and that they're supporting by the RU credits for the CTS. So you can get 11 different sessions have RT, the continuing education credit, the RU credits, which is awesome. And so, really it's going to nsca.org, going to the events and Pivot to Profit, and it'll take you right to that registration. And when you look at the sessions and the speakers, I mean, you think about that for $99. It's quite an affordable 2 days worth of education in that regards.
Yeah. Well, they say you sometimes have to spend a little bit of money to make a lot of money. And it seems like an investment that I can't imagine an integrator not making that investment. This is the time to improve our knowledge, improve our ability, as you say, to pivot, not ever to fall into stagnancy or complacency, because these are not stagnant and complacent times. These are times where we have to be as nimble and agile as the world is, and the world is moving pretty quickly.
That's right. That's right. Heck, I'd pay $99 to hear Mike Stavers talk. And we got a couple others like that where I'd pay $99 just for that one session alone. To hear about what emerging technologies can make the difference of your company being successful or not, and how to get involved with that. This connected technologies industry we're in, all of these endpoints and all of these devices now, the IoT, the PoE enabled devices, and all of these things are going to drive such opportunity to the integrators. I think it's really, really important for the industry to participate in the event just to see what the possibilities are for next year. I know so many people are worried about 2021, but look, to me, if we get engaged in this conference, we get involved, I think we could be proactive in making 2021 be a good year. If we don't do anything, I don't feel good about 2021. So I know we've got to make things happen. We got to be proactive. We got to lead better. We got to work harder. We got to be smarter. We got to have new things to offer our clients that's going to help them and their business. We're talking now about how well do we know our clients' issues? Do we know their business concerns, their workflows, their processes? All of the things that technology can help them run their business better. That's what we do. That's what integrators do, and that's why it's so darn important to have a good relationship with the client beyond just doing the one and done type of projects. So that's what P2P is all about.
Well, I share your general optimism about 2021. It is, I think, as you say, contingent on all of us, as I said earlier, being nimble, being agile, being willing to evolve. I think the first step, although not the only step, the first step is definitely taking part in Pivot to Profit Virtual. I know I'll be there, and I look forward to seeing all of our integrator readers there as well.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much, Chuck, for taking this time to speak with me. I really appreciate it, as I know our readers and our viewers do. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again. This is Chuck Wilson with NSCA joining me. This is Dan Ferrisi, editor with Sound and Communications.
Thanks, Dan.